What is the secret to clear aquarium water? There's really no secret. Let me explain. So you see, first of all, if you state that there's a secret to clear aquarium water, you're also insinuating that there's only one contributing factor as to the clarity issues that you're having, when that's simply just not the case. You see, there's a massive amount of things that could cause water clarity issues for you, and what I want to do is, instead of come up with this magical way that clear everybody's aquarium, which is simply not going to happen, I would much rather help you understand what's going on with your tank. So in today's video, we're going to look at when you're having water clarity issues, what is it you're actually looking at, what's causing it, and then we'll look at some of the ways that you can fix it. So let's get started. The first one we're going to look at is actually green water, and what you're looking at is microscopic free-floating algae. It's really just that simple. Unfortunately, this is one of the most unsightly types of clarity issues you can have in your aquarium, and a lot of people panic and look for quick fixes. But first, let's understand what's causing it. For the most part, when this happens, it's due to excessive light and/or excessive nutrients. You'll see this being a problem for tanks that are literally in direct sunlight, either from a window and/or ponds that have direct sunlight beaming down on them. You'll also tend to see this in tanks that are heavily populated. So the reasoning for this is simple. The free-floating microscopic algae is simply getting more than it needs to survive. Now, free-floating algae is present in any aquarium with a nitrogen cycle and light source present, meaning that there's nitrate and a light. Luckily, most of us have a good balance with these and will never incur excessive algae. For those of you that are, let's talk about short-term and long-term fixes. Short-term, the fastest way to get rid of microscopic free-floating algae has got to be a massive water change. Obviously, if you change out all that water, it's going to be gone. However, within a few days, it's going to be completely back if you don't change anything. So another short-term fix would be to add in an ultraviolet sterilizer. This will not only take care of the issue, but it will keep the free-floating algae gone out of your tank, most likely forever. But an ultraviolet sterilizer is more so of a band-aid at this point. So we need to look at long-term fixes. Now, since we already know why the algae is there, and we know that it's a living organism, we know we can kill it. I'm not a fan of using chemicals to treat simple things like this, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do so. So I'm going to stay away from those completely within this video. The first thing you want to do is look at your lighting. Is your photo period simply too long, or do you have direct sunlight hitting the tank? These are the two first things I would change. I would also then start looking at the nutrients in the tank. Obviously, these nutrients are coming from your fish, and one of the simplest things you can do to decrease nutrients is to decrease feeding. You also might need to consider your stocking levels. Perhaps you simply have the tank stocked too much. While you're at it, consider your maintenance as well as your water change schedule. Perhaps you're simply not doing enough. The overall goal here is to starve off the algae while finding a balance for the aquarium that works right for its location. If free-floating algae is always something that you're struggling with, my suggestion would to keep that UV sterilizer on it. These are hands down one of the best ways to treat free-floating algae. The next clarity issue that is a very popular one is the milky. What I mean by milky is, imagine you have a tank of water and you literally pour in a bit of milk into it. The color that it turns is what I'm speaking on. What you're actually seeing is a bacterial bloom. These are very common in newly established tanks and/or tanks that were simply cleaned too much and have gone through a shock. That shock being an influx of the bioload. You probably killed off a massive amount of bacteria. Perhaps you also added in too many fish at once, and your current bioload was not able to handle it. Now, while it doesn't look very good, these can also be very dangerous as well because your tank is trying to establish itself again. A short-term fix for this would be water changes. You're not only diluting the color that's causing clarity, but you're also diluting ammonia in the tank, which will be better for the fish. Now, although I mentioned I don't like to add chemicals and/or additives, there are media out there that could help deal with ammonia. So I suggest adding a bit of your favorite type of media designed to deal with ammonia into your filter. Now, the long-term fix is something people don't like to hear, and essentially it is weight. Your tank needs time to establish itself. With time, proper stocking, and proper filtration, the tank will clear itself. In the meantime, just stay up on your water changes and monitor the quality of it. Again, we're looking to find balance here. Maybe you need to increase the amount of media within your filtration and or lower your stocking levels. The next type of clarity issue that I see that is a popular one is when your tank is a tea or amber color. What you're seeing here is tannins. Now tannins are usually from wood and or bogwood especially. But what are tannins? Well, tannins are actually a yellowish or brownish organic substance found in many plants and or trees. Now the purpose of these tannins are to protect the trees and plants that they're found in from predators because the tannins actually have a bitter taste. However, when you submerge that log or leaf or whatever it may be in the water, these tannins leach out. And in turn, it turns the water colors as well as makes it acidic. So although that sounds bad, it's really not that bad. In fact, not enough tannins are really leached out of a piece of wood to make a massive impact on the perimeters of your tank. It just doesn't look good. For a lot of people, tannins are not that bad. They do make the tanks look a little bit more natural, and they do make the water a little bit more acidic, which can be beneficial depending on the type of fish you're keeping. The short-term fixes for this is really simple. Take the wood out and boil it and or soak it in a container until all the tannins have leached out. You can also add things to your filter like activated carbon, which will absorb those tannins. Now obviously those are the fastest ways to do it. However, the long-term fix is simply time and water changes. Over time, tannins are going to continue to leach out and your water changes are going to remove them. With enough time, you're simply not going to have any more tannins in the tank. Personally, I like to boil them in water as much as I can and then add them into the tank and naturally remove the tannins that way. Another clarity issue is particles in the water, meaning that when you look in the tank, it's simply not clear because there's a lot of something float in it. What you're looking at could be really anything. For the most part, it's uneaten food, fish waste, perhaps it's pieces of plants and or wood that are breaking off. The causes here are really simple. You're overfeeding or you simply have messy fish, and of course you might just have poor husbandry, meaning that you're not taking care of the tank as much as you say you are. Short-term fixes for these are actually pretty simple once again. Water changes and or use some polishers in your tank. A really simple one would be to use a water bottle polisher like I've shown you how to do in many videos before, or perhaps if you want to do some surface skimming, whatever the case may be, we have all kinds of projects that we've shown you how to polish your water. Some long-term fixes or some considerations that you need to make are the food that you're feeding. Perhaps the food that you're feeding simply breaks up too much for the fish that you're feeding, and or perhaps it has too many color additives and those are leaching out into the water every time you feed it. Sometimes switching your foods can improve water clarity. Personally, for me, I notice a big difference when I'm feeding pellets compared to feeding homemade food. I notice that when I feed the homemade food, my water clarity is considerably better. That doesn't mean it's going to be the same for you, but it does tell me that sometimes the type of foods can have an impact on your water clarity. Perhaps you also don't have enough mechanical filtration, which is responsible for removing all the particles from the water. You might not have enough and or it just might not be efficient enough. And one thing a lot of people forget to consider is the circulation of the tank. How well the water is being circulated and delivered to the filter, giving it a chance to do what it's there to do. Personally, I like to add a couple of air stones here and there simply to add a little bit more circulation. Power heads work really well as well. The key here is observation though. You want to try placement throughout the tank and move them around until you find the sweet spots, meaning that you find the spot in your tank that you place this extra circulation and there's no more dead spots. You might also want to consider your stocking. You might have simply stocked too many fish for that tank and it's causing the tank to always stay cloudy. The last thing is a hazy tank. Now hazy means that it's almost gray and or it's clear and it's not one of the others, but it's just foggy slightly. Now this is a tricky one because it could be a number of things. Some popular items that I have found is it could be substrate and or decorations. Perhaps your substrate was never rinsed thoroughly and or well, and it's continuously being stirred up and causing clarity issues. Perhaps some of the decorations, maybe they're fake, are leaching some of the paint off and causing clarity issues. What I like to do is slowly remove one decoration or the other and see if things improve. Again, this is something that takes time because you can't just remove it and expect results tomorrow. You have to wait a few days to even over a week. So I think I covered some of the more popular reasons your tank might be cloudy, and I hope this gave you a better understanding of all of them. Now that you know some general information as to what's causing them, you are better suited to act on that. I guess the point that I'm trying to get across is the secret to water clarity is understanding what the problem is in the first place and knowing what to do, which was the whole point of this video. I definitely am enjoying talking about all of this water though, so perhaps next week I give you my thoughts and ideas on water perimeters. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Once again, that's been this week's topic of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If not, come back next week and I'll have something different for you.